Yuji is your average corporate worker who gets worked to his bone and eventually dies from overwork. Soon, he gets reincarnated into another world as a tamer, which is recognized as the weakest class. But he soon befriends some overpowered slimes and decides to do some charity work for free. In a dark forest, Yuji gets ambushed by an ugly monster as he dodges its attacks smoothly. He then summons his slimes to take down the monster, and these Walmart versions of Rimuru destroy the monster with a single strike. With this, Yuji heads to the town and leaves the monster's dead body behind. At the Adventurers Guild, some losers are arguing with a guy whose barber did him dirty as he tells them about some slimes that breathe fire. They keep mocking him until eventually, Yuji enters the guild and approaches the desk. The lady deems Yuji a low-life failure like herself and assumes that he is here to cancel his request. However, much to her surprise, Yuji had already finished the task and is here to deliver the Drya flowers. This shocks the woman because these flowers are insanely rare as she rushes to call her chief. Seeing all these flowers, the chief comments that these would be enough for at least 2 years and decides to buy all of them. As they are conversing, another guy rushes into the guild and informs them that smoke signals have appeared in the forest. Yuji asks him slimes about this and gets informed that about 10,000 monsters are heading towards the town for some reason. Hearing this, the chief pisses himself and instructs the adventurers to leave the town because he knows their presence won't do anything. However, it seems like the adventurers have some dignity as they refuse to leave and want to protect the people. During all this, Yuji proposes that he can recreate dragon's fire using a dragon's bone and obliterate the monsters. All the adventurers refuse to believe him, but the guy who had beef with his barber convinces them and offers to help as well. Following this, all adventurers prepare to intercept the monsters, while Yuji climbs the tower while gathering intel from his allies. Even though the adventurers are scared they still want to help protect the town and its people. Just as the battle begins, Yuji announces that he'll finish this off in 15 minutes using Sage's special skill Magic Maker. Just then, numerous screens appear in front of him, and Yuji somehow processes all this information at once. During all this, Yuji receives intel from the Dryad that they have noticed a shady guy in the forest holding something. Yuji uses the CCTV camera he uses to peek into the girls' changing room to see the guy, and immediately realizes that he's carrying a magic stone. Without thinking further, he decides to destroy the stone using his slimes. He forges a barrier around the stone and dispels the magic stone. Amidst all this, Lily is spying on Yuji because she has nothing better to do. He also captures the shady guy, but he commits suicide. Yuji also notices that the adventurers are having a hard time against these monsters and decides to lend them a hand. He instructs his underlings to help these pathetic excuses for adventurers. Meanwhile, Yuji has forged a plan to take out all these monsters at once and instructs Lily to call back all the adventurers. He also instructs his slimes, hiding in the forest, to return immediately. As they are heading back, one of the monsters makes its way to the entrance, but gets confronted by the guy who identifies as a pineapple. Seeing that he is struggling against it, another adventurer rushes to help him, and together they manage to kick him out the entrance. With the help of Yuji's wolf, they eventually defeat the monster and head inside. With this, Yuji forges a barrier around the town and unleashes Hellfire of Demise. This spell nukes everything outside the barrier, including the forest, totally adding to global warming, but Yuji couldn't care less about that. The adventurers cannot comprehend how a tamer can unleash such overwhelming magic. Aegis even comments that anyone who uses magic of such caliber is basically committing suicide. This concerns Lily, and she rushes towards Yuji, who is feeling weak because of this spell. He is then informed by his slimes that the monsters are quite persistent, just like my Yandere X. With no other option left, Yuji decides to cast the spell once again as Lily attempts to stop him. Yuji, however, doesn't care about her opinion because she is a woman, and casts the spell nevertheless. This spell obliterates everything in the town surrounding it as Yuji falls to the ground. Yuji wakes up after some day to find his slimes and Lily standing beside him. In the meantime, the Aegis and the other adventurers have discovered the magic circle and the shady guy's dead body. Lily expresses her gratitude to Yuji for saving the town, even though he barely knows them. She then questions the reason behind his actions, but Yuji remains silent like Chad. This makes him remember the days when his work wasn't appreciated by anyone, and he gets happy. Later on, Lily brings some clothes to Yuji, only to find no one in the room. Yuji has escaped the town because he doesn't want to cause a huge scene. The following morning, Lily informs Aegis about this as he deems Yuji a hero who saved the town and disappeared without a trace. He also informs her that the guy behind all this must belong to the cult they have been hearing about. Yuji overhears all this using his slimes and wonders what this cult is. He then reaches the next town alongside his sidekicks. With all of this going on, a wannabe Heihachi instructs his lackey that they are looking for a loner adventurer who has never experienced love his entire life, just like you guys. Upon reaching the town, Yuji and his slimes search for food, as Yuji realizes that they are attracting a lot of attention. After grabbing some food from a local vendor, Yuji heads to the Adventurers Guild, where he approaches the receptionist who underestimates for being a tamer, which makes him wonder if he cannot register here. Just then, the lady notices something and clarifies that he can register here because he has enemy tracking skills, and people like that are rare. Yuji then registers himself and starts looking for some jobs. Suddenly, he gets approached by a guy who introduces himself as Rotus, a dagger expert. He asks if he is looking to join a party alongside two lolis who introduce themselves as Tina and Lisa. Yuji also introduces himself and reveals that he's a tamer, which shocks Rotus, and he underestimates him just like the quiet kid in class is. The girls, however, are in favor of recruiting him because he can track enemies and save their lives. They also mention something about Rotus's notorious past and how his party members always disappear. With no other option, Rotus has to accept Yuji, and their journey begins. Their task is to locate the Earth Dragon's hideout, and Yuji is tasked with tracking enemies. On their way, Yuji's slimes inform him about some wolves ahead, and he leaves Rotus to deal with them. It turns out that Rotus is not as useless as he looks. His slimes wonder why Yuji let that guy take down those wolves when they could have eliminated them for him. Yuji tells them that he wanted to gouge their abilities and continues the journey. At night, they have to camp as Rotus takes them off the path, because it is better to camp away from the path in smaller groups. As they are eating, Tina comments that Yuji gets along well with his slimes, as he tells her that they are his trusted partners, which makes them insanely happy. They then question him regarding his tracking abilities, but Yuji refuses to answer. Rotus then announces that they should rest, asking Tina to take the first watch, and he'll replace her after some time. According to him, Tina and Lisa should take the first and last watches because they need proper sleep for combat. This makes Yuji wonder if Rotus is actually a good guy. In his sleep, Yuji dreams about the day he got reincarnated into this world after dying by Overwork-kun, who is preparing to take over Truck-kun's job. As soon as he wakes up in this world, he comes across a slime and accidentally forms a contract with it. The slime leads him into the forest, and Yuji blindly trusts him, just like I trusted my manipulative ex. The slime leads him to a mysterious place where he notices numerous books and grabs one randomly. It turns out that Yuji can acquire magic just by reading the book, and it even pumps up his MP and HP. Suddenly, more slimes appear out of nowhere and offer to become his pets. Yuji tames all of them, and the slimes proceed to read the books for him. Since the slimes are his pets, Yuji acquires skills even if they read the books. He eventually acquires the status Sage. The slimes even start talking and cheering for Yuji. In the present, Yuji wakes up from his dream, with the slime informing him that Rotus has escaped from the camp, and the girls are chasing after him. Proud Wolf is also following Rotus alongside some slimes, and barely manages to escape Rotus's dagger, who has figured out that someone is chasing him. Tina and Lisa had their suspicions regarding him when he set the watch schedule because he is not the type to care about others. After dodging some traps, Rotus eventually reaches his hideout and reports to the wannabe Heihachi. He tells him that he has found two lolis who will fetch a good price, even though they are flat as cutting boards, and another guy who will eventually die on his own. Yuji is listening to all this using his CCTV slimes, and realizes that the rumors about Yuji were true after all. Heihachi, on the other hand, asks Rotus to make this quick because the blue moon is appearing soon. According to legends, the blue moon brings calamity, and they should be wary of that. Hearing this, his servant mocks him, which infuriates Heihachi, and he chokes him like his daddy. Meanwhile, Tina and Lisa wonder what they should do, and conclude that they should act hastily. They decide to head back, but being women, they accidentally stumble upon the traps, which informs Rotus of their presence. Rotus immediately heads outside to capture them, but notices a massive monster, which is actually Proud Wolf and the gang. Heihachi comments that he has never seen something like this and decides not to engage the monster. In the meantime, Yuji looks up some spells to get rid of these goons and picks out the weakest one. He transfers the spell Ranged Frost Medium to his slime and casts it upon their hideout. It turns out that the spell was way too overpowered as it freezes the entire hideout. The slimes bring out Heihachi to capture him, which shocks Tina and Lily. Upon seeing Heihachi, they immediately recognize him as Gelios, the infamous bandit famous around these areas. Both of them are quite shocked after witnessing Yuji's strength and question him about him. Being an introvert, Yuji doesn't like people meddling in his business and refuses to answer them. With no other option left, they continue their journey, but get some rest before. Yuji has decided to trust them and scavenges the perfect location for their camp. He even sets the camp using his slimes, which shocks Tina and Lily because they aren't used to such princess treatment. Later on, Yuji remembers Heihachi mentioned a certain organization named the Blue Moon of Salvation and concludes that they must be behind the attack on Fastan. With all of this going on, an old guy is staring at the moon. Watch this next video! Yuji, Tina, and Lily have reached the place where they are supposed to investigate the Earth Dragon, as Tina comments that there are no signs of the dragon around here. Yuji then questions them about the strong winds in this region, which Tina stating that these winds originate from the Delight Gorge, which is also known as the Valley of Wind. Some people even say that these winds are due to the Earth Dragon's stinky breath. Following this, they begin their investigation with Yuji using his slimes, who inform him that they haven't located the Earth Dragon yet. Tina and Lily, however, are way too confident on Yuji's slimes and are literally simping over them. This makes Yuji remember the time when he participated in the Adventurer registration exam, where he accidentally destroyed the magic ball used to measure magic. Later on, he was asked to strike a stone with his magic, and Yuji shocked all of them by using magic without any incantation. Seeing this, the instructor informed him that even though wordless magic is a high-level skill, it reduces the magic output. Yuji then uses the incantation and crushes the stone, just like my ex crushed my tiny heart into pieces. That even made him realize that he should use some weaker spells and eventually finds a spell that weakens his own magic. He then uses his slimes to test out this skill and gets rid of all the monsters in the forest. As they are walking, Tina wonders why they haven't come across any monsters, as Yuji reveals that the slimes have defeated them, which shocks them. Just then, the sky turns purple, which makes them wonder if Yuji is behind this as well, but he replies negatively. Meanwhile, another guy who is a huge Loli fan and is apparently cosplaying as Megumin is watching this scenery alongside a priest. Yuji then asks his slime if they have found something, to which they tell him that they cannot feel any monsters at all. Suddenly, the purple cloud starts spinning as the priest asks the Megumin cosplayer about the blue moon and informs him about the disaster prophecy. Just then, a massive blast occurs and an ominous blue dragon appears in the forest. Seeing this, Yuji instructs the Proud Wolf to retrieve all the slimes as he informs Tina and Lily about the blue dragon. He further tells him that this dragon is way stronger than the Earth Dragon, and they decide to retreat. Tina asks them to follow her into the Delight Gorge, which is a safe zone, because monsters don't like the strong winds. Despite this, Yuji asks his slimes to scout the area with Proud Wolf as they kill all the monsters they come across. Meanwhile, Tina and Lily are still simping over the slimes. As they are conversing, the Earth Dragon appears before them, and the girls literally piss themselves. The Sakura duo then hides behind a rock, but Yuji stays behind. He decides to take down the Earth Dragon and tries attacking it with some weaker spells. Seeing that the weaker spells have no effect on the dragon, he decides to use stronger spells, but doesn't want to overdo it. In the meantime, the dragon hurls some rocks towards the Sakura duo, and Yuji saves their sorry asses once again. Inspired by Cannon Bolt, the dragon starts rolling like a cannon and ambushes Yuji, who dodges his attack rather smoothly. He then lures the dragon to the source of these winds and traps him there. With no other option left, Yuji obliterates the dragon with Hellfire of Decimation, which turns the dragon into my grandma. Tina believes that Yuji used the underground minerals to cause an explosion, and since Yuji wants to hide his abilities, he agrees to this. After this, they head to the guild, where they reveal that they defeated the Earth Dragon at Delight Gorge, which shocks the counter lady, and she refuses to believe them. Yuji then pulls an Ueno reverse and brings out the dragon's skull. He also pulls out the Heihachi cosplayer they had captured before and gets a huge reward for it. Just then, the Lolicon approaches Yuji and invites him to a meeting where they are discussing the countermeasures against the blue dragon. They ask Yuji to draw the dragon because he has seen it up front, and Yuji uses his skill to basically print the dragon's picture. Seeing this, the priest comments that it resembles the picture he found in a book of myths. The priest further informs them that the dragon can destroy an entire continent in 3 days, which makes it a mythical class monster. This makes the Lolicon question how the dragon was sealed. The priest tells him that a messenger with power that rivals that of a god appeared and defeated the dragon. Suddenly, the Lolicon remembers the reason this dragon appeared. He recalls that 30 years ago, a ritual was carried out in the royal capital when the moon and the sun overlapped in a line with the stars. The priest also remembers it as the divine spirit summoning ritual and agrees with him. As they are conversing, the sky turns purple again, and Yuji's slime informs him that the dragon has gotten even bigger. This makes them realize that the dragon grows whenever the sky changes color. With no other option left, the lolicon decides to attack the dragon with everything they have. Later on, as Yuji and his slimes are savoring their food, the Sakura duo approaches him and insists that they join the battle against the blue dragon. They are confident that Yuji and his slimes will defeat the dragon. Following all this, Yuji gets summoned by the priest, who tells him that he received a message from the divine oracle and has brought something. He then hands over a short sword to him, stating that Yuji might be able to use it. Later that night, Yuji remembers the time Examiner told him that he is way too overpowered and decides to take down the dragon himself. Yuji sets out with Proud Wolf and his slimes into the forest without informing anyone. Upon reaching there, he instructs all his slimes to evacuate while leaving one behind. He wants to attack the dragon with Hellfire of Demise, but its range of attack is way too wide, and he decides to go with Hellfire of Decimation, the attack he used against the Earth Dragon. As expected, the attack doesn't do shit to the dragon, and it retaliates with launching beams that destroy the forest. He protects himself and the slimes with a barrier. Just then, the slime he had left behind informs him that the dragon is absorbing energy from the destroyed forest and is growing bigger. Yuji then pulls out the short sword, which is as short as Sakura's battle against Madara. Yuji wants to concentrate his Hellfire of Demise on the tip of this short sword and attack the dragon with it. With this, Yuji hops onto the Proud Wolf and approaches the dragon. The dragon launches another attack aimed towards Yuji, but he manages to stop it with a barrier. Just as he reaches below the dragon, the slimes comment on how massive it actually is, because that's what she said. With a combination of jump boost and his barrier, Yuji manages to reach the dragon and pierces its eye with the sword. He then activates the Hellfire of Demise and believes that the dragon is dead, but suddenly, the dragon smashes Yuji into the mountain. Yuji realizes that he'll be dead if he loses focus for a moment, and also notices that his MP is in negative. The dragon then launches another beam towards Yuji, which gets stopped by his barrier. At this point, Yuji wants to bring the dragon down, and wonders if freezing it would help. As he is scrolling through his skills, a timer appears in front of him stating Divine Strike. Just as the dragon stops attacking him, Yuji activates the Divine Strike and the dragon drops to the ground. Yuji then hops onto Proud Wolf and approaches the dragon again. This time around, he manages to decapitate the dragon using Hellfire of Demise, and the dragon is dead. Yuji then heads back to the town, and as he is lying down, someone knocks on his door. Much to his surprise, it is Captain Lolicon who informs him about the dragon's death and that the priest has left the town. He also urges Yuji to request for help if he ever needs to defeat a dragon. After all this, Yuji has breakfast with the Sakura duo, who are disappointed that they couldn't get to fight the dragon, even though they would have been pretty much useless, just as their name Sakura duo suggests. They then ask Yuji regarding his future plans, as he reveals that he wants to move to another city. He also asks them for recommendations regarding this. Lily suggests that he travels to Ricardo, which has some fascinating cuisine. Later on, Yuji bids farewell to the Sakura duo and leaves the town. He leaves his slimes back to protect the duo because he has taken a liking to them. On his way, he gets contacted by the Dryad, who informs him that mushrooms have started growing at the place where he defeated the dragon. She further tells him that these mushrooms can be turned into mana, restoring potions, and wants Yuji to help her. The blue ones can even return mana, which piques his interest, and Yuji decides to help her. He then instructs his slimes to gather the mushrooms and makes things a lot easier for the Dryad. She then begins preparing the mushroom, but for some reason, the blue mushroom potion is not turning blue. She suggests that they should use pure water, as Yuji recommends distilling the water. As they are distilling the water, Yuji notices the color of potion is quite similar to the magic stones they encountered before. This makes Dryad remember the time she met Yuji the first time. Yuji had saved her by sharing some of his mana when Dryad was on the verge of death. She told him that someone had placed a magic stone in the forest which made her sick. Hearing this, Yuji dispels the magic stone, but something is still off as suddenly, monsters appear from the stone. Yuji traps them inside his barriers and uses Hellfire of Decimation to obliterate them. In the present, Yuji questions the reason this potion resembles the magic stone. The Dryad tells him that the magic stone must have contained Dragon's Grace, which is an incredible power that exists only at places where a dragon has been defeated. She further tells him that the Dragon's Grace is neither good or evil, and it depends on how it is used. After this, Yuji notices that the water has been distilled, and the Dryad prepares the potion again. This time around, the water turns blue, which makes her insanely happy, and she hugs Yuji, which makes him brick up. After the Dryad heads back to her forest, Yuji and his slimes head to their next destination through dense fog. On their way, proud wolf senses some humans and leads Yuji to a village where the creepy villagers keep staring towards Yuji. A weird guy approaches him and offers him to stay the night, but Yuji refuses. He then offers him food, but Yuji refuses that as well. After asking the name of this village, Yuji takes his leave. Meanwhile, the weird guy informs someone about Yuji's visit to their village and informs him that they will harvest the dragon's grace tomorrow. In the meantime, Yuji eventually reaches the Reincarnated, which is covered in snow, even though it is supposed to be a sunny city. Watch this next video.